Okay, this is going to be a video continuing the trig equations part of it. Some additional things we're going to jump into here as well. All right, so what we're going to talk about is if cosine of x equals 0.61, find sine of x minus pi over 2. Okay, so what you're going to use is you're going to use the sine sum and difference formula, which says this: sine of A cosine of B minus cosine of A sine of B. Now, what does that mean? All right, this would be my A and this would be my B, okay? So if I fill this in, this would be sine of X cosine of pi over 2 minus cosine of X times sine pi over 2, okay? Now, all right, we know that this, all right, would be 0, right? Because cosine at pi over 2 would be 0. We got cosine of x. Sine of x, we got that being 1 at that, okay? So this would be 0 times that would be that, so it would be minus x, okay? So this will be equal to negative cosine of x, okay? So all this stuff right here is equal to negative cosine of x. Well, at the beginning of my problem, they gave me the cosine of x was 0.61. So I can just simply substitute that and get negative 0.61. That's all you got to do for that one. All right, pretty simple. You just got to use the identity. Now, someone say, Mr. Evans, I looked at our formula sheet. We don't have secant one. Yeah, but we have cosine. So what we're going to do, okay, is we're going to remember that this is 1 over secant. Okay, that's something we'll get into with that. Okay, so we're going to really use the cosine formula. Okay, all right, so we're going to find this. Okay, all right. Okay, 1 over cosine is the same as sine. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's do it this way. All right, the idea is secant is 1 over cosine. Okay, so 1 over cosine of x minus pi over 2. Okay, so the formula there would be cosine of A minus B. Okay, so it'd be cosine A, cosine B, plus sine A, sine B. You don't have to write it down, but it sort of will help with the process. So this will be my x, and this will be my, this will be my A, this will be my B. So cosine of x, all right, cosine of pi over 2, plus sine of x, and sine of pi over 2. Okay, so we know that this would be 0, right? Because cosine would be 0 plus sine of x, and we know that this would be 1. Okay, so that would be 0 plus sine of x. So we got this equal to sine of x. Okay, so this result is equal to the sine of x. All right, so we got, all right, so what would that mean for us? All right, pretty simply, okay, we're just going to put this over 1. Okay, so very simple from that standpoint. So basically that is the same as sine, okay? So what we would have here is this is 1 over cosine is the same as sine, okay? All right, and we know that cosecant is just 1 over sine, okay? All right, so what basically would happen here is this would be 1 divided by negative 1.18, okay? All right, no, sorry, that's incorrect. Okay, so we got this, we got cosine, I'm getting this all jumbled in my head, sorry. So we got cosine of this is equal to sine, okay? All right, so whatever the sine would be, okay? So what would that mean for us for cosecant? All right, that 1 over that, okay, this stuff, all right, would equal 1 over sine, okay? So very simply, the concept would be that what I would have here is that this is going to be negative 1.18, okay? Because basically what we're doing is these are on the same level, okay? All right, why don't you guys give this one a try? Okay, go ahead and give this one a try, all right, on your own, all right? So what I would have here with this, okay, I would use this as a 1 over sine. So I'm going to figure out what this would be as 1 over sine. The sine formula would be sine A cosine B minus cosine A sine B, okay? Where this is my A and this is my B, okay? So I got sine of x cosine of pi over 2 minus cosine of x sine of pi over 2, okay? So this would just be 0 times sine of x minus cosine of x times 1. So we got this result, right? We got sine of x is equaling to negative cosine of x, okay? All right? Now, in our problem, however, they gave us secant, okay? All right? So the bottom line is we're going to have an opposite sign deal, okay? We're going to have an opposite sign deal. So what's going to happen is I got 1 over sine would be the same as cosecant. 1 over that would be the same as secant, okay? All right? So basically what would happen is just that negative 2.37 goes in there, and it's 2.37, okay? All right? All right? Okay, now, let's apply that to addition problems. We're going to do a little bit more. Now, what these would be is this would be the cosine A plus B formula, and this would also be the cosine, this would be cosine A minus B, okay? So let's go ahead and write these down. So cosine A plus B would be cosine A, cosine B, minus sine A, sine B, okay? This part would be cosine, so I got a plus there, cosine A, cosine B, plus sine A, sine B, equals 1/2. Now I gotta keep what's straight here, okay? So in this part, we'll do one side at a time. This part, my A is pi over 3, and that would be x. So I got cosine pi over 3, cosine of x, minus sine pi over 3, sine of x, okay? On this side, I got, this is pi over 3, and this is x, okay? So I got cosine pi over 3, right, cosine of x, plus sine of pi over 3, sine of x, equals 1/2, okay? Looks like a lot. Let's find what the cosine of pi over 3 would be. Cosine of pi over 3 would be 1/2, so this would be 1/2 cosine. The sine would be square root of 3 over 2, so minus square root of 3 over 2, sine of x, plus, we already found that as 1/2, plus we already found that was square root of 3 over 2, sine x, equaling 1/2, okay? Now, on the surface looks complicated, but look, the negative and the positive basically cancel each other out. So I got 1/2 and 1/2, so that's going to give me 1 cosine of x, equaling 1/2. And I just do inverse of 1/2, okay? And I'm back to my original. Where's my A1 and my H2? A1, H2, okay, so that would be pi over 3, okay? Where else is cosine positive? Cosine is positive down here, so that would be, I forgot to put these in there, 5 pi over 3, 7 pi over 4, 11 pi over 6, okay? So that would be the other answer would be 5 pi over 3, okay? All right? Okay, now let's go ahead and do one more together. Okay, so this is back-to-back sine plus formulas. So this would be sine A, cosine B, plus cosine A, sine B. And I would do the same thing over here. Sine A, cosine B, plus cosine A, sine B. Okay? All right, now for this one, this is the A, this is the B, this is the A, this is the B. Okay, so make sure you're just making sure which one. Sometimes they end up being the same, but so this would be sine of 3 pi over 2, cosine of x, plus cosine of 3 pi over 2, sine of x, and it ends up being the same thing, plus sine 3/2, cosine of x, plus, this is equal to -2, sorry. okay, plus cosine of 3 pi over 2 sine of x. Okay, all right, so 3 pi over 2, that's this. We know that that's going to be -1. So I got -1 times the cosine of x. This would be 0 times the sine of x, plus -1 times the cosine of x, plus 0 times the sine of x, equaling -2, okay? All right, well, the 0 stuff's going to go away, all right? So I got negative cosine of x, all right, minus cosine of x equals -2, okay? So that's -2 cosine of x equaling -2. I can divide by -2 here on both sides, so I got cosine x equaling 1. So I got to find out where the cosine of x equals 1. Okay, that's pretty easy. Okay, that's going to be at 0, and that's it. Okay, don't have any others besides that. Okay, all right. Go ahead and you go ahead and try this one on your own. Okay, this formula would be the cosine A plus B formula. So that would be cosine of A, cosine of B, minus sine A, sine B. Just keep this straight over here on this side, especially because we're going to have a new, this formula here would be the sine A plus B formula. Okay, so sine A, cosine of B, plus cosine of A, sine of B equals 0. Okay, all right, so on this one, this is your A, this is your B, and on this one, this is your A, this is your B. So I got cosine pi over 6, cosine of B, cosine of x, sorry, minus sine pi over 6, sine of x, all right, plus sine of A, now this is going to be sine of pi over 3, cosine of x, plus cosine of pi over 3, sine of x equals 0, okay? All right, so cosine of pi over 6, that would be this one. This would be square root of 3 over 2, cosine of x, all right? Minus, I got sine of pi over 6, which would be minus 1/2, okay? Sine of pi over 3 would be square root of 3 over 2, cosine of x, okay? All right, this would be cosine of that would be 1/2 sine of x equaling 0, okay? So what ends up happening here is these two cancel out, okay? Got to be careful here because this is a 1 and this is a 1, okay? So when you add those together, you would get 2 square root of 3 over 2 cosine of x equaling 0, okay? All right, so this would end up being 1. So this would end up being 1/2 and 1/2, which would be basically 2 over 2 with the square root of 3. So that's going to be square root of 3 cosine of x equals 0. I guess just divide by the square root of 3. So I got cosine of x equaling 0. Okay, inverse cosine of x of 0, it's going to be 0 at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. Okay, all right. Okay, not my favorite thing there with that, okay, but that's what you would do with that problem, okay? All right, now we're going to do something that we've done before in the past. They'll show this with identities, but you really don't need the identities to do this. Okay, we've done this before where we draw the triangle, hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. This is opposite this hypotenuse. That's going to be 7 and 25. I can do Pythagorean theorem. That's 49 plus a squared equals 625. Subtract 49. That's going to be 576. I take the square root of that, and I get a is 24. Okay. Now, you can find these ratios pretty easily yourself. cosine would be 24 over 25, tangent would be 7 over 24, and cosecant would be h over o, which would be 25 over 7. Now, you just got to use the clues, okay? So what this says is sine is positive, tan is negative. So in my unit circle, where is sine positive and tan negative? That would be this quadrant. So the only things that are going to be positive are this. This would end up being negative, and so would this. Okay? And that's how you do those. Okay? We've done those before. All right? I think I'll have you guys do one. Okay? All right? Okay, so go ahead and tackle this one. Okay, on your own. All right? H, O, and A. That's going to be 4 and 3. All right, so that's going to be 3 squared plus 4 squared equals my hypotenuse squared. So it'll be 9 plus 16, which would be 25. And then take the square root of that is 5. Okay? All right, so I can find these ratios. Sine would be 4 over 5. All right, cotangent would be 3 over 4. And secant would be 5 over 3. Okay? Now you got to use the clues. Okay? You got to use the clues that tan is positive and cosine is negative. Where is that the case? That's in this quadrant. So this would be negative, this would be negative, and this would be negative. Okay? So we've done those before, but those come up in this unit, so I wanted to make sure we covered those.